Welcome back to another episode of the Unknown Sports Podcast. My name is AJ Musser. Joined with me as usual is Hunter Harris and Austin Fyffe. Guys, trade deadline day. Big things going on. People filling out papers all over the place. But Hunter, let's talk about some fancy papers, brother. Some very fancy papers.
I honestly just love the design on this can.
It's very nice.
Very nice. Very satisfying.
Cigar City Brewing. Too bad we don't have a cigar to go with this. We'd have to have AJ Hawk on the podcast with us then.
Oh, yeah.
As a guest.
How many cigars do you think that guy consumes a day?
I bet... How many... I think he only goes through one on the McAfee podcast, right?
Is that right?
Probably. So probably just one a day.
I've gotten...
That'd be my guess.
That's a lot of cigar.
No, it is. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not, but one a day probably.
I have a plug, by the way, for Cuban cigars if you guys ever want some.
Oh.
Also, listeners, reach out. Might have to take a donation from the podcast for that info.
But fancy papers, Cigar City Brewing. Let's give it a try. We get it from...
It's from Tampa, Florida. And this is an IPA, by the way, people.
It's going to be hoppy. For those of you who actually care, it's 45 IBUs and it's 6.5 alcohol. Like I said, big trades happen today. We're not going to discuss them just yet. First, we're going to start off by recapping last week's games. We're only going to talk 3 of them. Let's get started talking San Francisco at Los Angeles. This was an entertaining game, guys. It was the 2 NFC West teams, the teams that we interpret to be the 2 best teams in that division, finally showed out and played. Hunter, what were your thoughts on this game?
This game ended up 31-14, but it was definitely more entertaining than that score leads on. Because, forgive me if I'm wrong, that started out 14-0 Rams, right? 31 run?
Yeah, I believe so.
I believe so, yeah.
Christian McCaffrey is sick. That's awesome. I didn't realize that he was going to make them this much better offensively, though. And I didn't expect them to use him this much this soon. You know what I mean? Because wouldn't you think you trade for a guy like this, since injury prone, he'd be waiting a little bit longer before they break him out like they did? How many times he touched the ball? Like 25, 30?
Yeah, it was a ton.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be the thing that I limit a little bit is the touches. But, like, thinking about it in this perspective, you're putting a top 5 running back in the league when he's healthy on the team with the best run scheme in the NFL, and the scheme that everyone tries to steal off of and make their offenses look like. And now you're giving them a top 5 running back. They've had these guys like Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson running all over the place, and these are just guys. You actually give them a good running back, like I said, a top 5 running back. Like, that offense is now very scary. And Jimmy G, I mean, he can just sit in a lazy boy back there and hand the ball off.
27 touches for McCaffrey. Ended up in a passing touchdown, receiving, and rushing.
3rd player in NFL history to do that. Anybody want to take any guesses at who else has done it?
I thought it was the 10th.
Paul Hornung. I'm probably not wrong there, or it's probably close to it.
Maybe that stat is in the last so many years, AJ. So that might be a little skewed. First since 2005 when the Danian Tomlinson did it, and then Walter Payton was the other one. So not bad company there for Christian McCaffrey.
They moved to 4-4, which means I knew nothing about this division. Still,
did Mariota not do it in the playoffs?
Receiving too?
He threw one to himself, basically. He threw that pass and it got bad, and he caught it and scored.
He did have a passing one in that game too. Did he have a rushing touchdown?
I don't know.
Maybe it was also running backs. We're also I might not have
could be
asterisks to that stat, but
yeah.
Does that go down as a receiving? I know we're getting down a rabbit hole here. Does that go down as a receiving touchdown for him?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yep.
And a completed pass.
Yeah, just like Brett Favre's first throw.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this was a good game, but it's wild to say, but the Seahawks are still on top of this division. Do we see Austin, we were just talking about this before the podcast started. doing the podcast this year is so strange because it's like we know who the listeners are kind of fans of, and it's like typically the good teams. And this year, there's just so much mediocrity. What we were saying, you could say like there's 4 very good to elite teams, and then teams 6 through about 20. If you were to make a power rankings, they can flip flop any given Sunday. And then there's probably like 8 bad teams that we know are just garbage. But there's like 16 teams, no joke, that are like very equal. It's hard to do the podcast. It's hard to figure out what to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, it's so many of the quote unquote good games, from the previous week. The ones that we thought were going to be good aren't. And then the ones that are amongst bad teams are the ones that are entertaining, but nobody wants to just sit around and talk about the Carolina Panthers and Atlanta Falcons.
Exactly. Like that was a fantastic game. And it's like, well, the Bills play the Packers, and that was supposed to be one of the games of the year. And we're not going to really dive into it because we pick on the Packers so much. We don't need to. We're going to make this a positive Packers podcast because we don't need to rip them any more than we have. But like, and that's one that we also saw coming from a mile away. So that's another reason we don't really need to take digs at them.
There's just a mix of teams where you don't know what they are, like Seattle, Jacksonville. Yep. Who else can we throw in there? Like honestly, Tennessee, even.
Yeah, Cincinnati,
Cleveland, Tennessee,
Indianapolis,
the Jets.
The Giant. Like the list goes on and on. Yeah, we could sit here for another 5 minutes and list names, but like,
yeah, there's just so many.
Yeah, I mean, it's just why when we go through these games, we're not really going through a bunch of them. We're just kind of picking and choosing because we're like, who are people even interested in? Like,
yep. Well, then you got quite a few teams too that are only good on one side of the ball. And it's like,
lots of teams.
Yeah, Denver. Like Denver's got an elite defense, but had before this week. But
yeah.
But their offense is terrible. So it's like.
Same with the Jets. They got one of the best defenses in the league, worst offense. Same with the Browns, one of the best offenses in the league, one of the worst defenses. It just goes on and on and on and on. Let's move on to the next game, though, from this Sunday. Giants at Seahawks. So we are going to talk 2 mediocre teams that we really don't talk that much.
Hey, one of these teams is good.
No, they aren't.
You know what, Hunter? I'm with you. I think the Seahawks are a solid football team. I think they're good. I don't think they're great. And I don't think they're elite, obviously, if I don't think they're great. But, like, they're a good football team. They're a young football team that's got a good, young core coming up. Geno Smith's doing what he's told to do, and it's making the offense kind of click a little bit or do what it needs to do, and the defense is kind of coming alive.
Right now, if you had to vote right now, who would win Coach of the Year, Pete Carroll or Brian Daboll?
Brian Daboll. Right now, just because of the media's narratives towards it. But
no. I'm saying your vote. Who's
personal
done a better job?
I would vote Pete Carroll.
I'd vote Brian Daboll.
I don't think that currently, like what they've done, given their situation, I don't think there's been a better coaching job this year than Pete Carroll.
It's true.
Yeah, and
I mean it's so much addition by subtraction. Mm-hmm. I don't want to talk Broncos at all, so I guess we can throw it in a little here. Has any person taken a bigger dive from a total personality and athletic perspective than Russell Wilson has in the last 6 months?
3 years ago, people were saying, is he a top 3?
Yeah.
Not top 5 or 10. A top 3 quarterback in the league.
Yep. Yeah. I don't get it.
Which just shows you how
talked about as a top 5 football. He's been talked about as a top 5 quarterback since he went to back-to-back Super Bowls or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean it's as soon as he decided that he was going to do his own thing, from all these stories that are coming out now, that's when he struggled. So I mean, was it Seattle's problem ever?
It doesn't seem like it at this point. It definitely seems like
the only reason they didn't win multiple Super Bowls in that run.
It looks like, like when you see like a relationship and then they break up and the whole time, you're kind of like, yeah, you're agreeing with the guy that maybe the girl was a little nuts. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, that girl's very normal. He's an idiot.
Yeah.
That's what it was. That's what the Seahawks and Russell Wilson thing is, the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson relationship.
And shout out to Russ's agent, dude. Getting that money before he played it down with Denver. Shout out to him.
Yeah.
For real. He's wrapped into that contract for 6 more years, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And I'll be the first out myself. I don't know if you guys remember this. A couple of years ago, I was a huge Russell Wilson fan. I love Russell
I was
Wilson.
too. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I supported him as well. I thought he was solid.
But we also, if you watch
He
football,
still
you
drove me nuts.
understood the way he plays best is he's play action, run heavy offense. He's able to be a little bit creative off of that, but you're not sitting him back there and saying, "Hey, figure it out."
If you could get him to buy in, which clearly I don't think you can, based on everything that's come out about him, all the stories from former teammates and stuff, I think he could be elite in San Francisco.
Oh,
like
yeah.
if they own, they just ran Shanahan's offense, used his deep ball ability, and just let him maneuver that offense, I think he would be awesome. But he doesn't. He wants to be this spread out Phil Rivers, Peyton Manning type guy, and that's not him.
He's not about that Omaha Productions life.
Which does that make you bad as a quarterback to not be able to do stuff like that, or does that just make you different?
Because it's not being coachable.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it makes you a bad teammate. I don't know that it makes you a bad football player. Like, I still think Russ is a good quarterback. I just don't think he's elite, and he's trying to make himself do elite things.
How much would you sign up for Russell Wilson per year? You're taking him onto the Bears. You guys are in win now mode, run heavy offense. You're going to do play action. What do you want to pay for him?
If he's willing to buy into the type of system they're running now, I think you put him in that top 10 range.
Like 35.
30 or 35. Yeah, I think that's
30, 35.
He's got all the talent.
He's not taking that.
Dak adjacent. I mean, that window.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I sure as heck don't want him at, close to 50, which is what Denver's paying him?
Yeah. Good luck with that, Denver. Broncos fans. Let's cry.
City by the Bay.
Let's move on. Monday Night Football. Yeah, I don't really want to talk to this one either, but we will. Cincinnati at Cleveland. Browns showed up for the first time this season for a full 4 quarters. I'd say 3 quarters and 13 minutes, or maybe just 3 quarters. That first quarter was really rough for both teams, but then Cleveland kind of figured it out and said, "Hey, let's be the team that we have the roster and like that people think that we can be." And then they absolutely blew the doors off Cincinnati. And also at the same time, people were thinking after Cincinnati got that win last week and all of a sudden Joe Burrow's that guy and he's elite. I'm not saying Joe Burrow's not that guy, but they just got punched in the mouth the very next week to the Browns, who have been a bumbling mess this entire season.
Yeah, it was kind of to piggyback off the Russell Wilson talk, it's kind of 2 teams that need to be who they are. And with Jamar Chase out, Joe Burrow could not attack down the field like he wanted to. And when they don't have Jamar Chase, that receiving core is awesome when you have a number 1 at the top. When you don't have a number 1 at the top, that becomes mediocre real quick.
Yeah.
And it just became guys that can't be the guy. And then all of a sudden, Cleveland was like, hey, like you said, AJ, let's just do what we're good at. And it worked pretty well.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to win games, too, when you're not shooting yourself in the foot every 3 drives by turning the ball over or having a bad special teams play, whatever it is. And you just play halfway decent football and not make mistakes and run the football, which is your strength. It can be a lot of football teams.
You give the ball to that guy named Nick Chubb. He's kind of good.
Yeah, is Kareem Hunt officially he's staying, I guess, for the rest of the year? They're gonna because he didn't get traded, right? Okay.
He seems like a pretty good guy in the locker room. I think he'll put it to the side and play through.
Not in the home.
No, not in the home, but but yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll get to more trade stuff here very shortly. But yeah, I mean, I would have been very curious as to see what that team would have looked like without Kareem, because then it's like, are you going to play the same way and just like have Chubb split it with Dearness Johnson, or are you going to just go all out on Chubb? That would have been interesting to see, but now we don't have to see it.
Well, Kareem Hunt's not really been effective a whole lot this year. I don't know if that's been because they're trying to dial him back to trade him, and now they're not trading him, and that's going to ramp up. But they still be giving him touches. He had like 10 carries last night, right? He's
been getting his touches. I think he's getting like 10 to 20 touches a game.
Effective. They're not been designing a whole lot for him, I don't think, as much.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems to me that they're kind of using them interchangeable this year, and that's not what they should be doing.
Yeah, why do teams have success and then suddenly say, hey, let's try something new? I don't know why teams do this.
I think it's because you guys look at Kareem Hunt out of the backfield as a better receiving back than Nick Chubb, because you guys think Nick Chubb's a bad receiving back. He's not bad. Kareem Hunt's just very good at it.
Right. But they need to utilize that. Like, Kareem Hunt's a decent route runner, and they don't really do that. Like, it, especially with a not super deep receiving core, it feels like something that they easily could incorporate into their offense, and it just haven't.
I think he does split out wide sometimes, but they don't throw it to him. Again, like Hunter just said, they don't design routes for him that they get him the ball in space. Like, that doesn't happen.
Right.
I want to hit on Cincinnati here before we move on.
Go for it.
Losses like this cannot be happening if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. I know it's a rivalry, and it's a team that does well. Divisional game on the road, a team that does well at the things that you struggle with. But you have to be winning these games. They're dropping. Are they 4-4 now?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, like, this is a pivotal part in the season, man. You got to start winning some freaking games. For a lot of these teams, I know we can say that, but this is the team that was in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, I mean, for the Browns, last night's game was, hey, you know, like, if you don't win this game, you are sellers tomorrow, as in today. And if you win, I mean, there's still a chance. Like, next week they're off. They've got a bye week, and if they can prepare and come out and get a win off their bye, then you're looking at their sitting 500, and it's like, you know, things can happen at that point.
And what's the constant thing the whole way through whenever they're struggling? It's Joe Burrow getting sacked and Joe Burrow getting pressured.
Yep.
Literally fix that. I'm begging you guys at this point.
Zach Taylor needs to fix it. He's in that camp of coaches that are given credit because they have really, really good quarterbacks, and he's not that good of a play caller.
No, he's
I
not.
agree. But he looks a lot better because he got his team looked like he helped get his team to a Super Bowl last year, even though we all know it was Joe Burrow making plays with that receiving core the whole year, and the defense being very good too.
Perfect matchups.
Yeah, that too. Good matchups.
He got to face the Raiders and the Titans in the playoffs.
Matchups wins football games.
Well, then he played the Chiefs, and the Chiefs.
Well, yeah, but I mean, anything can happen in one game.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, getting there or getting to the AFC Championship game, it was very fortunate matches.
Yeah, you're not wrong. All right, let's move on. Before we discuss or preview our games for Week 9, Austin, run us through some of these trades that took place today.
Holy moly! NFL
Holy
record
clock,
for
dude.
trades at trade deadline. NFL record for trades in a single day, outside of the draft, of course. So started off, in my opinion, the biggest one. Miami acquiring Bradley Chubb from Denver for a first-round pick, a fourth-round pick in 2025, and Chase Edmonds. I think from what I read, Edmonds is more of a throw-in to make the salary stuff work. But gives them an opportunity with Javonte out to at least have another back in there that they feel like they can trust.
Yeah, fantasy people who have Chase Edmonds, that might help a little bit because they really don't want to give the ball to Melvin Gordon.
Very true.
So he might become a little bit. He might help you out a little bit as a flex option.
I love this move for Miami.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Take it away from there.
Yeah, when you have a team that's ready to win now, you shove all your chips in the middle. And this is honestly not giving up a whole lot to do that, comparatively to what you got. Bradley Chubb's a stud. I would give up a first, a fourth, and what else did they give up? Running back?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, he's good, and that defensive line isn't bad. They're average, and now you're giving them a guy, and it's like, hey, that could go from an average to good pass rush to a really good pass rush all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I mean, this was a vintage move and Miami's done it for a while now, of using your picks to get great players. Like, I'm not a fan of getting rid of picks for mediocre guys, which we'll talk about in the next trade that Miami also did. But they got 3 first-round picks in when Trey Lance, or when San Francisco traded up for Trey Lance. 3. They used the 21 pick, in combination with a third-round pick to trade up to get Jalen Waddle. They used the 22 pick in the package to acquire Tyreek Hill. And they're using the 23 pick to acquire Bradley Chubb. In your wildest dreams, those 3 picks come maybe kind of close to what those 3 players are. They did a fantastic job getting elite talent on their team to help a young quarterback and become contenders really quick.
Yep. I agree. That makes Miami very scary. And then seeing whatever, maybe they kind of flail out for the rest of the season, but you give them an off season to build, and people like Miami. People like to go to Miami. So free agency, Miami could be big next year, but we'll see. I think they're going to be frisky for the rest of the year for sure.
I think they're.
And I picked them to make the playoffs.
I think they're going to be legit. Like, I don't think they're going to be beating either the Bills or the Chiefs, obviously, but I'd put them up there as a team that should honestly throttle the rest of their schedule. They're damn good, dude.
Could you? Yeah. I mean, but they're now to the point. I think with this big help on defense, it now won't shock you if they beat Kansas City or Buffalo, right? Like, I'm not saying I expect them to, but it wouldn't shock me anymore.
Especially when you had a guy like Bradley Chubb and you get a pass rush actually going. I mean, their pass rush wasn't terrible to start with.
They were bottom 4 in the NFL in pass win rate.
Oh, where they were?
Pass rush win rate until Bradley Chubb. So I mean, this was not only a huge move, but it was a huge move at their biggest need. Like it was, all the stars aligned, and I thought they didn't give up enough. Like I wouldn't have been upset at all.
I agree.
More. So as long as they can re-sign him, then it's all worth it for sure.
I think picks are way overvalued in the NFL.
Picks you have potential, whereas when you trade a pick for a player, I mean, you know what you're getting, but sometimes you can put an unrealistic price tag pick-wise on someone, whereas there's some teams that are good at drafting too.
I think any
your strengths.
I think any pick that is not a first-round pick is overvalued.
That's a good way to.
Like I think first-rounders do have immense value. But as soon as you get into the second round, it genuinely feels like a coin flip. Like, so if you can turn one of those picks into a guy that you at least know is good, he may not be great, but you know is good and is going to contribute on your team, just do it. Like, it doesn't make. I mean, obviously you can't do it forever because you have to get cheaper talent to keep everything moving. But yeah, I
day one
with some other stuff.
Day one picks are a hell of a lot more valuable. Like the McCaffrey trade, they didn't give up any first rounders for that. That's why I love that trade so much. Yep. If you gave up a first rounder for a running back, that's a little bit of a different situation. Day one picks you have so long to prepare for, and you do so much research about all these guys that are at the top. Obviously, you're doing still all that research for the other people, but it's so much more in flux, With first rounders, though, the value is just a lot higher.
That was one heck of a tie in there, Hunter. You being a professional. What? The first round pick that Miami traded was the San Francisco 49ers first round pick from this year.
Oh, really? Interesting. That's fine.
You meant to do that. It was fine. I got
totally
you.
meant to.
All right, Austin, what do we got next on the list?
We should finish up Miami here. They traded a 5th round pick for Jeff Wilson Jr., which is what I alluded to a little bit ago, in trading draft picks for mediocre players that can easily be replaced in the draft. Small caveat here, they are going for it, and it is nice with Mike McDaniels coming from San Francisco to have a running back that he trusts and knows his system, because they really haven't gotten much production out of the running backs this year. So having a guy that knows the system, knows what to do, that you can plug in right away and there's not going to be a learning curve, it will be nice for him.
Yep. Not a whole lot to add there.
Yeah. Go for the next one.
Next one's a big one.
Next one is just mind-blowing to me. Minnesota acquiring TJ Hawkinson. They also acquired a 4th round pick in each of the next 2 years for a 2nd rounder and a 3rd rounder next year. If it was just Hawkinson for a 2nd and a 3rd, I would have gotten it.
Yeah.
But basically them just moving back from the 2nd to 4th and 3rd to 4th and acquiring a Pro Bowl caliber tight end at the one spot that Minnesota's offense really needs help.
Yep.
This just made it a slam dunk. I don't know what Detroit's doing here.
Yeah, you just gave up 4th round picks for no reason. Mm-hmm. And that's what it seems like to me.
In division.
Yeah, and you're only getting a second out of it.
I don't have a problem so much with the in division stuff because Detroit's clearly not close.
Yeah,
If you feel like you're ascending, like Hawkinson's probably not a Viking by the time Detroit's contending again, because it'll be the year 2362.
Sure.
But I get what you're saying.
Sure, but when you're a team that's trying to build and develop on young talent, why'd you just give away this guy that's probably got... Is there anybody outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown? Is there any other player on that team that has more talent than...
Swift, maybe?
DeAndre Swift and Jamison Williams, who hasn't gotten to play yet this season.
Okay. But he's up there, man. Like, he's right up there with those guys.
He's probably top 5. I mean, offense or defensive side of the ball, you probably got Hutchinson, and then those 4 guys we mentioned on offense. That's probably their top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't get really much anything of value back.
Yeah, that was the thing for me, is if they would have given up the 4th and got Minnesota's 1st, then I wouldn't have had...
It's almost like they're trying to get him out of the building, so it makes you wonder if there's more there.
When you look at those picks too, it's like, okay, well, you're giving it. It's almost like you're giving up quality for quantity for quality.
Yep.
But your quality that you're getting is a second rounder, not a first rounder, and it's for this year, right?
Yeah, a second. Yeah.
Okay. So if Minnesota then comes, I don't know, if they go to the playoffs and they win a game and get in the divisional round, so that's going to be like what, the 25th, 26th pick?
Yep.
So then you're looking at like, that's almost the 60th pick in the draft.
And you add on to it
Hawkinson for like the 60th pick of the draft.
Yeah,
and
add
fourth rounders.
Add on to it even more, AJ, it's Detroit's 4th rounder. So if Detroit ends up with the first pick in the draft, which is very possible, they're moving up from the back end of the 2nd to the beginning of the 4th. So really, all you're doing is moving back 1 round.
Yeah, essentially.
I mean, it's. I didn't get it at all. I thought it was.
And
really
you have the following year's 4th rounder too, and you're already pretty much guaranteed a top 10 pick in that 4th round.
Correct.
So,
just a constant reminder that every time we think the Lions are moving in the right direction, they actually have no freaking clue what they're doing.
High five, Hunter. We nailed that preseason when everybody wanted to talk about him.
I wanted to talk about him. That's me.
It was you next? And everyone else.
I know. I was just on. I was just on the train, dude.
Vikings getting a lot of grit in that trade. Let me just say.
Next one. I think the 5th most impactful trade. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I don't think it's super over the top impactful. At least immediately. Chicago acquiring Chase Claypool for a 2nd round pick. The GM came out afterwards and said he doesn't love this class of wide receivers in free agency or coming out of the draft. And so they decided to make a move where they could to get a guy that they feel like can produce on the field already. Going back to what we talked about earlier, don't overvalue your picks. If this is a spot you feel like you have to take a position in the draft and you can trade for a guy that you think is just as valuable, go ahead and do it. And I had no problem with that. I loved the transparency from him going, hey, we didn't see anything that we liked there that was going to be available at that spot in the draft.
Yeah.
And let's get something we know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When it's phrased that way, for sure. It's like, hey, we were going to spend a 2nd rounder on a receiver, or we're going to consider it. And it's like, Chase Claypool seems like he's got more upside and he's already better and more refined than most of these guys that would come out in the 2nd round.
Yeah, and he came out, he was super young. He just turned 24. So, I mean, he's still very, very young.
Yeah. The only place he'd really be losing value is he's closer to contract year.
Yeah, but the Bears have so much cap space, and he's not an elite receiver that you can get him on a pretty. I think you get him on a pretty fair deal.
You would think so.
So I don't think the Bears should have any worries, and I don't think the front office does have any worries of re-signing him.
I just picture Green Bay getting the phone call. Hey, you want to get Chase Claypool for a 2nd? Hell no! Hangs up immediately. You kidding me? He's worth a 4th at best.
There's a quarterback in the 2nd round we got our eye on.
The aftermath stories was just, and who knows, time will tell if this was actually ends up being a good or bad trade, but the stories of them saying that the Packers offered a 2nd and the Steelers assumed that Green Bay would turn their season around a little bit with Claypool on their team, just asked for a 5th to add on top of it, and it would have got the deal done, and they refused. And so then the Bears swooped in and were like, all right, you need a second? Here you go.
And Chase Claypool does not change our season at all. I wouldn't have loved us getting him, but
Hunter, I agree with you completely.
Pisses me off.
Oh,
yeah. Hunter, I agree with you completely. I don't think that Chase Claypool would have been the answer that fixed that team. I really don't. Would it be? I think it would just be more of the same. I think he's probably a little more talented than the receivers on that team, but like he's not. I mean, yeah, a little, but I'm not saying like he's not elite. Like it's not. You're still not filling the shoes of Devontae Adams, even with all the pieces you have. Like you still be scratching and clawing.
Yeah.
But I do think Claypool is better than Lazard. Yeah.
Well, yeah. That's where I disagree. I think that Claypool with Ben Roethlisberger had, I think it was almost 900 yards receiving. So having Aaron Rodgers throwing in the ball, I do think that made a significant impact. But I mean, it is what it is. Like Hunter said, it's about the principle for Green Bay at this point. Rodgers wants help. Rodgers needs help. He's trying to get help, and they just won't give it to him.
I'm glad Zach does not listen to this podcast. The problem with the Green Bay Packers is that we don't have an owner. There's no pressure to win. There's no pressure at all. What's the worst that can happen here? The fans start to get mad and they start to sell those shares to more fans that also want those shares. Come on now. There's no pressure to win. There isn't.
Hunter, you know who's been saying that for years?
What, you?
No, not me. No,
Who?
Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd's been saying that for years.
It's 100%
that's
right.
the reason. That's what's wrong with the Packers is they don't have ownership.
Now, it is cool to be a fan of the team that doesn't have an owner and to say that you could be a part of that ownership someday. That's cool. It's different. Awesome. But I freaking like somebody breathing down my team's neck to win some games at some point.
Yeah, putting some pressure on the people in the building anyway, at least.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I felt that way for years about the Bears. I know they technically do have an owner, but she's, for the last 9 years, she's been 90 plus years old and she doesn't care.
She's been legally dead for 10 years.
You're damn right she has. Yeah, and I mean, it's the same thing. It felt like it was like, okay, we're going to spend a little bit to make the fans happy. And then, okay, we'll just collect our profits. Thanks. Like you said, there's no pressure, no one breathing down your neck. I didn't think about it that way for Green Bay, but I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
I think that's also why Rodgers also has such a chill outlook and vibe around the team and in the locker room because he's like, I don't care. Coaching staff has to answer to me as much more than they have to answer to really anyone else.
It was funny when we were having to make the move from McCarthy over to LaFleur. How Mark Murphy stepped in and basically tried to act like he was the owner, even though he's the CEO, and he just really doesn't care. He just wants the fans to stop yelling at him.
Right.
That's literally it. That's all the pressure that we possibly could have is Mark Murphy getting yelled at from fans. And Mark Murphy, I'm pretty sure, is untouchable at this point, too. So, great.
Yeah, I mean, you don't fire your CEO unless you're not turning a profit, and there ain't no way that team's not turning a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's on the board of directors? All of Green Bay?
Brett Favre hasn't been there in years because he's too busy
stealing tax money. Anyway, topical. Any other trades?
Bart Starr's on there. He's been dead for 6 years too.
Next one for me, the most shocking trade of the day, I would say. Calvin Ridley getting traded to Jacksonville. There is about 19 stipulations on what the compensation will be based on what happens with Calvin Ridley, whether or not he's reinstated at the beginning of next year, whether or not he hits certain goals, whether or not he's on the roster for the following year, et cetera, et cetera. If he signs an extension, it is the max that he can get, and then they get a second round pick for him. Not gonna lie, when I saw this come across the screen, I was like, I bet you there's 10 teams that wish they would have done this trade.
No one probably was even thinking of it.
Yep. And I mean, kudos to Jacksonville for, turning over every stone. Because if they add a good wide receiver in the draft and have Calvin Ridley, there is no excuse for Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson. None.
Yeah, honestly, it definitely is a trade that you look at and it's like there's probably 20 other teams in the league that would have signed up for this in a heartbeat. Like, oh wait, we could trade for him. Let's get like the Browns. I don't, if the Browns, I think, would have thought of that, I think they'd have jumped all over it. Because you're only getting Watson for however like 5 games this year if you don't even make the playoffs, and then you could go into next year with Amari Cooper and Calvin Ridley and Donovan Peoples-Jones. Then all of a sudden that looks like a pretty decent receiving core if Peoples-Jones is your number 3.
Yep.
I was working today and I didn't get to dive into this too much. Is the punishment that was passed down on Calvin Ridley, is that a team punishment or is that a league punishment?
It's a league.
It's a league
okay,
punishment.
so they can't do anything about it. Okay.
No.
This year.
The other thing that needs to be, I think, stated for everyone, especially online, this suspension was not a year suspension. This suspension was indefinite, meaning not ending until Roger Goodell decides that this suspension can end. So I think everyone's assuming that he's just going to get reinstated at the end of the year. This is one of those things, man. If you start gambling on sports, people try to really draw a firm line. If there was any sort of misconduct or not crossing every T and dotting every I, it would not surprise me one bit if they suspend him into next year as well.
You know what, Austin? I kind of get where you're coming from, but there's also a sexual predator that's going to play quarterback for the Cleveland Browns this year and took the national storylines for about 4 months of this offseason and all of last season, basically. And they only didn't do it, like suspend him for the whole year because they didn't want that cloud over the season as well because Watson's team would have sued. So it's one of those things that it's like, so he can't gamble on his team when he can't bet on his team when he's not even playing in the game. But this guy can go and assault 60 some odd women.
I'm with you.
I know you are. I know you are. I'm just saying.
However, we all agree this is about money, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, yes. Your morals are in line with mine.
Yeah, no. I'm with you. I'm just
Ridley
saying,
can come back next year. He's all right. But I get what you're saying of the NFL is going to be like, hey, you don't mess with our money.
Right. And with gambling being how much of a force as it's been in the last 18 months, everywhere, legalizing across states, all over the country, NFL adding partnerships, teams adding casinos and sports books inside the stadium in some cases. If the NFL wants to make a point of this, don't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. I mean, he very well may be back next year, but I think everyone just going, oh, he's back week 1 next year. I don't think we can quite jump to that conclusion.
All right, what do we got next? Unless, Hunter, you got something to add.
No, it was a steal. Like, I mean, a second-round pick is still a lot to give up, but like we talked about, when you're getting a stud player, you make that move every time. I didn't really think about that, though, him being indefinite. I don't think it's in the league's best interest that he be suspended any longer, though.
I agree. I don't think we can take it for granted. Was my whole point. Next move, I was
gonna say, go ahead.
The last move of the day. I think the other ones we pretty much had hit on. Buffalo getting Nyheim Hines from Indianapolis for Zach Moss in a 6th. This was vintage to me. Buffalo going, okay, I can upgrade my team for literally nothing. We were probably going to cut Zach Moss soon anyway. He doesn't have a carry in the last 4 games. So why not trade him in a conditional 6th round pick that is likely not to be a 5th round pick unless they win the Super Bowl, I believe is the condition on it. At that point, you don't care. You gave up a 5th round pick. So
yeah. Yeah, this one to me is like, hey, we've got Hines, who's just, he might help the Bills a little bit, but I don't know. I feel like the Cook kid in the back, James Cook, I feel like he's slowly getting more production as the season goes. Singletary, we know the Bills have kind of wanted to move off of this whole time. And then, Zach Moss was kind of just the odd man out there of, hey, you're not beating out Singletary, and we just drafted a running back that we think is better than you. Like, we might as well let you go somewhere else and play. But, Zach Moss is going to get some touches now in Indy, I think, if Jonathan Taylor's not.
I think this is a bigger trade than we're giving it credit. I think Nyheim Hines is going to be a real nice fit in this offense.
Oh, darn. I thought we were on the same page for a second. Keep going.
He won't get the bulk of the carries, but they want to pass the ball at the end of the day. Come playoff time, I think it's going to be Nyheim Hines on the field almost 70-80% of the time.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. I think the most underrated part of this trade is that Nyheim Hines is a very good punt returner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a move where if you can make an upgrade special teams before going into a playoff push where you're deemed the favorites, get any little edge you can. It's a conditional 6th-round pick and a guy you're probably going to cut anyway. If you can nudge that bar your way just an inch or two, do it.
He's got 18 rushes for 36 yards on the year. He's not going to be used as a running back. He's going to be a receiver.
Yeah.
But Buffalo wants to throw the ball anyways, so why do they need a running back? Why do they keep trying to establish the run game anyways? I think at this point they should just say, screw it. We're going to be pass heavy all the time. Screw it.
Yeah, whatever the
Until
running
Josh
they
Allen
do is
gets
just
hurt.
Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think the whole establish a run thing is just to save Josh Allen's health.
And give him a
They care a lot
breather
about
for a
that,
play.
don't they?
I think that pretty much wraps it up for our trades. Good trade talk. Hopefully, if you listen to the podcast, you learned something. All right, let's preview week 9 real quick. 4 games to talk about. Let's start Sunday afternoon. Miami at Chicago. Miami 5-point favorites on the road. Austin, your Bears have improved. Fields has looked better and better the past 3 weeks. Still not saying he's good, but improvements, steps in the right direction. What are your thoughts?
I'm officially calling him good for where he's at in his career.
Okay.
Like, I'm willing to acknowledge that. Like, obviously he's not a finished product by any means. But
He's
every
good
week,
for a second-year quarterback that had a bad coach for his first season.
right? So I mean, he's in line with where I think people would like his development to be. He's starting to get comfortable with the offense. Got a new weapon with Claypool. Claypool runs the 4th most deep ball routes in the NFL since he's joined the league. Justin Fields throws the 10th most, but has the 24th most yards on said routes because he doesn't have a guy that knows how to run a go route. So could be a lot of fun with Claypool there. Really good match, really good fit. They'll be fun. That was my biggest takeaway from the trades is that they're going to be fun. They're not going to be good, but they'll be fun.
These are 2 teams that did take a step each in the right direction. Chicago gave Fields a weapon. Sure, they have pretty much no talent now on defense. And Miami improved their defense, and their offense is already pretty explosive. I think Miami definitely is going to win this one. I don't know if the Bears are going to cover this one. I don't really want to touch it. Hunter, what are your thoughts?
It's go time for Miami. They're going to start beating up on some football teams here.
Ooh,
not some soccer teams, some football teams. I don't know why I say it like that.
All right, let's move on. Green Bay at Detroit. Green Bay 3.5-point favorites on the road as well. I'm locking up the Packers in this one.
Gross.
Detroit's, I know it might be gross, but Detroit is just not good defensively. I think maybe this is the week that the Packers need to just start figuring some things out. The Lions are coming at a nice time. They've dropped a couple games. Now it's like, hey, let's get our season back on track and beat up on the Lions. And if they don't, Hunter, if the Packers lose this week, are we slamming the panic button?
What do you mean panic button? What does that mean? Slamming the panic button? Are we starting to is Rodgers freaking out? Are we going to get?
I would
just
say
as a fan
Jordan
base,
Love at some point here.
I would say
no, you're not going to get
no,
that. No chance you're getting that.
No,
I'm just saying.
I would say panic button meaning if you lose this game, are you panicking about your ability to make the playoffs?
Yes, of course. I'm already panicking about my ability to make the playoffs. What do you mean? We're 3-5.
Well,
yeah, but like we talked about at the top of the
mode.
show, like everybody's in that middle. Like all you have to do is go on a 3-game stretch and you're right back in it.
I get
Probably,
it, but why? We didn't make a single move to make us any better. Not one. Not even players coming back from injury bro. Is really going to make us better. Players come back from injury. How much more does our offense score per game? Instead of 17, is it going to be 19?
Could be.
Until LaFleur figures out that we need to run the damn ball, we're not going to do anything.
He tried. Tried to run the ball last
Not correctly. He goes about it so wrong.
I don't disagree. I'm with you.
If it's 7 minutes left in the third quarter and the Lions are up 21-10 or something like that on us, I will be turning the game off and I will be done watching this football team. I think for the year.
Well, stay tuned until next week. Then I want to hear how this goes. Actually, you're watching football with me Sunday, so
yes, I am.
So
you'll get to see it in live action. Can we please watch Red Zone?
I'll live tweet it for the listeners. All right, next on the list we've got the probably the best matchup of the week, I think, and I think you guys would agree. We've got the Los Angeles Rams at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is a 3-point favorite, even though they're a hot mess. Two teams that are hot messes. Cooper Kupp, I believe he is playing in this game, though. A little ankle soreness after getting rolled up on in Sunday's game in garbage time. Sean McVay, kind of a dummy move, leaving him out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was seriously hurt. I was already starting to prepare what I was going to say on this podcast.
Yeah. Sean McVay, though, definitely is a guy that doesn't look to the future in games. He is definitely in the moment and doesn't think ahead. Am I wrong in saying that?
No.
F them picks.
Yeah.
Yeah. For real. That's an example. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Same thing, Hunter. When I saw him go down, I was like, oh man, if he just ruined their season in garbage time to not try to get blown out by Shanahan again.
I would love to know how tight his asshole got at that moment.
Yeah, so it was
shaking, dude.
Luckily, it seems to be all right. I don't know what to make of this game. I really don't.
I don't either, because the Bucs are so hit or miss. Some weeks they look average and you could kind of see it maybe, but then other weeks they're just bad.
Everything about this game, matchup wise, is like I want to hammer Tampa Bay, except for the fact that Aaron Donald plays on the other team, and their offensive line is so bad.
Yeah, I want to hammer the under.
Yeah,
hammer the under.
There might be 12 points scored in this game.
I'm actually.
Go ahead.
I'm locking up the Rams in this game. This is a must-win game for the Rams, I think. Must win.
Isn't it a must-win for Tampa Bay?
Yeah, it is. But they're also. I just am not a believer. Like, I don't think they're mentally into it. I don't think they have enough protection for Brady currently. Defensively,
the Rams.
Not doing enough. I know, but dude,
I know.
If I'm having to plant a flag on either one of these teams, it's going to be the Rams right now, and it's, in my opinion, it's not super close. The Bucs really got to prove it to me this week.
I hate having the Rams on like nationally televised every week in that 3:00, 4:00 slot.
Yeah, only
so tired of watching them
this week too. Only two.
Yeah, the other one's Seattle and Arizona, and we'll for sure be watching that one.
Gross.
Yeah.
How many games do they have for the noon?
The rest of them.
8 games at noon, 2 at 3:00. What are we doing?
Yeah,
it'll be games that don't matter.
For those of you that are your casual football fans, Sunday might be a day to go on a picnic. I don't know. I don't think it's much to watch.
Get your brownie points with the misses.
Yeah, you're not going to be missing anything. Just tune into us next week, and we'll tell you what happens.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to
fully embrace the. Hey, babe, there's no Tuesday night football this week. We can hang out tonight.
First of all, Maction started back tonight, so you're wrong.
Sunday night football, Tennessee at Kansas City. Kansas City's 12.5-point favorite. I really only highlighted this one for us to talk about because this is the division leader of the AFC South against division leader of is Kansas City the division leader of the AFC West? Pretty sure they are.
I hope so.
Yeah. Anyway, that's why I wanted to talk about it. This is two teams that could make the playoffs, and one of them is kind of gross that it could make the playoffs. I just kind of want you guys to confirm for me. Is Kansas City just going to blow Tennessee out of the water?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm locking them up. That's all I need to hear. I just needed to hear you guys agree with me before I locked it up. But yeah, I'm locking
the only question in this game is who's going to throw some weird touchdown gimmicky play Is it going to be Kelsey? Is it going to be Hartman? Who is it going to be? Because they're going to stomp the shit out of them, and it's not going to be even close. It's going to be they're going to be flexing on them by doing some pretty disrespectful plays because they have history with Tennessee, so they want to kick the absolute snot out of them. It's at home too.
Yeah, that Mariota playoff game we were talking about, that was against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great game.
Yeah,
I loved that game.
Don't fall into the trap, people, if you're betting of the whole Mike Vrabel's teams do well against blah blah blah. This team is not good.
No, they're bad.
This is not a good team that people don't know about like it was in previous years. This is not a good team. They are winning games against really, really bad teams, and so by default, they're winning their division. This is not a good Titans team, and Kansas City is going to take care of business handedly. Maybe a backdoor cover when they're up 21 and some garbage time touchdown happens. But I mean, Kansas City should have major control of this game.
Yeah, I agree, Austin. I think the only way that Tennessee covers is if for the first half, Kansas City has a really difficult time figuring out how to stop Derrick Henry. That's my only thought. And the Tennessee just milks time of possession. And so Kansas City doesn't even have enough time to score that many points. And Tennessee manufactures and just plays pretty efficient offense.
They don't have any weapons though, dude. I would blitz 7 on every down.
Yeah.
And just be like, I don't care, beat me.
Yeah.
Tannehill's not super mobile. I don't trust Malik Willis to throw the ball.
No, he can't throw the ball.
No,
they don't trust Malik Willis to throw the ball. He threw it 10 times last week.
I know.
Yeah, and he didn't throw it well on 8 of them.
Yeah, beat me. I dare you. Whoever the quarterback is, beat me.
Yeah.
And they won't do it.
We want to talk about teams that would be a good fit for Russell Wilson. This would be one of those teams.
Tennessee? For sure. If he could buy
Still no wide receivers, though.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Run the football.
Yeah. Well, let's quickly run through our locks real quick. Austin, I'll let you go first. What were your 3 locks for the week?
I'm going to lock up the Chargers.
Chargers at Atlanta, 3-point favorites.
Correct. I don't think we're going to see bad Justin Herbert twice in a row. I think we've kind of run out of this Atlanta magic of randomly winning games that shouldn't be won. They shouldn't have won last week. There's a BS call on DJ Moore for that celebration call.
He took his helmet off. That's been a penalty forever.
No, the penalty is when you take your field off in the field of play. He didn't take his helmet off until he was out of the back of the end zone. That's not a penalty. It's the rule. Regardless.
Big ref guy.
Big ref guy.
Yeah, big ref guy. You're right.
It's the rule. I get it. I know why it was thrown because everybody calls that a penalty, but it's not. That's not the definition of the rule. Regardless, they keep finding ways to win these crappy games against these weird teams. My only concern is that the Chargers are a very weird team. So we'll see how that goes. Locking up Cincinnati. They aren't going to be this bad 2 weeks in a row. Carolina's not good. Again, they're playing some not great teams and piecing stuff together. But the interim coach magic runs out after a couple weeks, and I think this is where we get it. I think Cincinnati takes care of them pretty handedly. And then finally, Minnesota. TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. Just way too much talent for Washington. The only concern here is Kirk Cousins' revenge type stuff, and maybe stuff gets weird. But I think Minnesota wins this by a touchdown at least.
Taylor Heineke screaming, you like that? Austin, did you enjoy last night watching the Manning cast and Peyton Manning putting on a ref outfit, dude? Did that make you happy?
No,
the greatest quarterback.
I was sleeping for most of that game because I was awake for 9 hours straight the previous night. So I got some Z's during that game because AJ convinced me it was going to be a snooze fest.
It was. Hunter,
I'm backing you, Austin, on that Cincinnati play. There's no way that this bad 2 weeks in a row, and I believe in Joe Burrow. I like picking teams to rebound that have good quarterbacks. I'm taking Cincinnati. I already said the Rams is my other pick, and then I'm also going with Philadelphia, 13.5-point favorites over the Houston Texans, who at this point are mailing in their season.
Yeah. Yeah, the Davis Mills experience was fun while it lasted.
The Davis Mills experience is called tanking. That's what it is. That's what we should call it.
Hey, he was the #1 quarterback recruit coming out of high school.
I didn't hate him coming out of college as a backup, not as a
he still
legit
can
starter.
be a backup.
Yeah, definitely
backup still.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have an awesome like Brian Hoyer type career.
Oh yeah.
Love me some Brian Hoyer. Great Browns quarterback.
Statistically, that's true.
Yeah, it is. That's why I said it that way. I did phrase correctly.
Yes, you did.
My 3 locks for the week, Hunter, I'm with you on Philadelphia. I definitely see Jalen Hurts and that offense are just really good, and that defense is super good. Adding Robert Quinn to that is just, I don't know. It's unfair. That defensive front was already really good, and now they can rotate. Philly's to me an elite team. I think they're in the top 3 right now if I was going to do power rankings.
Plus, they get to continue just beating up on really bad teams. So
that they do. They showed the rest of their schedule for the rest of the season. They could go undefeated. I think they have 1 or 2 tough games left this year.
Quick fun fact that I heard today. Philadelphia has scored more points in the second quarter than the Steelers have on the entire season.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. My second lock I said was the Packers, and my third lock I said was the Chiefs. Could be an interesting week. This honestly kind of feels like a week I could go over, but that wouldn't be anything new, would it? Would it? No.
Hey, AJ Parlay, is it back?
Yeah. No. Maybe, I don't know. I wouldn't.
It isn't.
I wouldn't, but that's because I'm AJ.
Yeah.
You guys, you're in charge of the fate.
I would say it's in full effect, but Houston also tied this season already once, so they have a loss they need to make up.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. Hunter, before we sign off, dude, what did you think about Fancy Papers?
Out of IPAs that I've had, I enjoyed it. Once again, not a big IPA guy, so it's already on a scale that's starting down here.
Yeah.
But I didn't hate it at all. I love the can. Makes me wish I had a cigar. Maybe then that would get the full effect.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it would be a good pairing.
There's nothing I enjoy more about the end of our podcast than one of the two of you going, "This wasn't bad," and picking up a full glass.
I didn't like it, and I drank half of it.
You drank more than me. My drinking the beer is no way a reflection of how much I enjoyed it. That is me because I don't have any food in my stomach, being a responsible adult.
Oh yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah,
unless it's land shark.
Yeah, for me, this was, like I said, 45 IBUs, and if you don't know IPAs, or that means it's pretty hoppy. And I'm not a big hoppy IPA guy. The lower the IBUs on an IPA, the better for me. But yeah, quite hoppy. We're gonna hop on out of this podcast now. Nice. Until next week, everybody, take it easy.